Hey there, gang. Danny here in the editing booth, aka my damn desk. Just a heads up before we start this episode. We're probably going to talk about what you think we're going to talk about, and it probably should be noted that myself, David, and Gabe are not investors or qualified investor advice guys. You know, that little caveat that says everything that we say throughout the episode should not be construed as investment advice. Take that all into consideration per usual, and of course just apply that to any previous and or forthcoming episodes we have. Keep it in mind, we should not be construed as advice for investing. Otherwise, enjoy the episode.
Time is numb, the Keurig's clean, your dog is dead, it's a Ponzi screen. Ponzi screen, because it's just something to do.
I burnt my finger on a kerosene stove, so that's why I was clapping so like ha 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 ha, you know.
Danny, where do you live, man? Like you
I was in a garage, all right? I was in a friend's garage.
Okay.
Don't judge me, okay?
Because you're always like, I got my sewing kit and my kerosene lamp, and
yeah, it's like you're a whaler doing scrimshaw and whatnot in the hull of a ship.
Yeah, well, no, turns out those kerosene lamps, they're great because they're like these big industrial things now that can really heat up a space. But if you put a metal cup on the thing that gets hot, oh boy, is metal a fantastic conductor of heat. So I just burnt the shit out of my ring finger. So
we're here talking about the thing that everyone's talking about, which is Danny's finger and GameStop. GameStonks.
You messed it up, David.
GameStop.
GameStop.
Yeah.
I love to buy Resident Evil 4 at my GameStop.
I saw. Well, there's been some really good memes about this, and I just want to first talk about the memes because I think that's the most important thing about this whole thing.
Yeah.
Like there was one. You know, remember the meme of like the Ninja Turtle and the pig, and there's like the young Ninja Turtle and like the adult pig, and then there's like the adult Ninja Turtle and like the dying pig. Do you guys remember this format?
Well, I think when are you talking about pigs or are you talking about Splinter the Rat?
Splinter the Rat. Sorry, Splinter the Rat. Yes, sorry.
So someone never played with toys as a child, but
I was a Power
Were you
Rangers
not allowed
guy.
to watch
I'm sorry.
TV as a kid?
I was a Power Rangers guy, and so it was like Millennials, GameStop, and then as soon as like the Splinter the Rat is old, and the Ninja Turtle is like Millennials, GameStop. You know, like helping to take care of GameStop as he gets older, as he took care of me when I was a child.
That's funny.
Yeah, I get that.
like that.
Yeah, that was a really good one.
Yeah, just remembering. I mean, personally, if we're sharing personal anecdotes, I played a huge amount of video games, but I don't think I ever really stepped foot in a GameStop. I was the weird thing is I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, and back then we had a grocery store named Fred Meyer that also had an electronics section. So whenever I went to buy a video game, that's where I went. Is like the grocery store. Oddly enough. So I've just never been in. I have no like. I get it. I have so many friends who are like, yeah, I got paid $6 an hour to work at the GameStop, you know, or some shit like that in 2004 or whatever. But that's it.
I think I was a Target video game purchaser. That was my biggest place, and then it would be after that Best Buy, and then Circuit City would be the three.
Oh my god, dude, I loved the Circuit City. They were great.
That's where I
smelled like computer dust. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I rented my video games from a video game from just like the VHS rental stores in DC.
Right, renting video games.
I would rent the video games. Hell yeah,
hell yeah.
And I would go to really seedy before Blockbuster took over entirely. The closest place to me was in DuPont Circle, and it was a pretty seedy spot that where I could get all of the new release movies instantly because the front of the store was tiny, and then there was a beaded curtain, and behind that beaded curtain was like a stadium full of pornography. So no one went to that store for like Terminator 2, right? On opening weekend release, they went there for the hardcore porn, but they also had a Nintendo and they had a Sega Genesis consoles up front, and you could play video games in the store up front.
The video games were the beard.
Right.
Like,
yeah, so I went there and
cover.
played Duck Hunt with junkies and would like rent Natural Born Killers from the
It's like a guy in a trench coat, and you're like, "Are you here for the new Sega game?" And he's like, "Yes, I'm." Yeah, that's what it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
God, that fucking I didn't have that because I was a little bit after, and we exclusively rented our video games at Blockbuster. So like that was also very honestly that's the stock, which I guess I found out is still a stock. Blockbuster is still a stock.
There's only one left in America.
Yeah, but apparently it trades on the stock market. And, like if I had to invest in one of them, to short a billionaire hedge fund company, I'd invest in Blockbuster if I was going by pure empathy vibes, you know.
Yeah. Well, so look, we've been talking about before we started recording as to like how much of this do we want to walk through, because we're recording a few days before this comes out and things are about to change, I'm sure. And I also saw another tweet which was really good, which was like, this has been a really great week for guys who like to explain stuff. And it's just kind of like, that's true. And I don't know how much we really need to explain at this point, because if you're listening to this podcast, it's been 2 weeks now. You know what's kind of going on. You know how it went. And you probably know more information than we do at this point.
It's folks, sometimes you are editing the podcast at the end of a news cycle and you see one lone tweet come up and you say to yourself, Danny, that sounds like something that would be right up our alley for when we record next week. And you send it to David and he says, could you send me a link to this? Because I'm not sure what that is quite yet.
Oh yeah.
And then over the course of 72 hours, the story that you thought would be a nice little esoteric fun thing for your podcast turns into essentially the most important story of the week.
Yeah.
So, you guys, I have a question for you about this, okay? The GameStop has been seen as kind of a like a revolt of the plebes, or a revolt of like the hive mind, a bunch of little investors, amateur investors, pumping their $600 stimmy checks into the market through the Robinhood app.
Yeah.
But we did a whole podcast on the Robinhood app a while back, and it is basically funded by Citadel, which is another hedge fund.
That's right.
So my question is this really is the narrative of sort of the underdog taking out these legit hedge funds real, or is this a war between two hedge funds with a bunch of Reddit boys as proxies?
Well, what the Redditors have done is a short squeeze, right? Which is you're trying to fuck over someone who's
titillating.
Shorting. Yeah, it's like what you're doing at the dance club, shorty squeeze. And the short squeeze has been done historically only ever really by other hedge funds trying to fuck each other over, right? That is, Wall Street is oftentimes fights between two perfectly evil entities. There's no good guy, there's no populist, nothing. It's just two big bad guys trying to kill each other. And this time, it was a crowd-funded short squeeze, effectively. And they raised enough capital to be able to do that. And I wouldn't say... And then on the tail end of it, I think a lot of financial firms have gotten in on both sides of it. I think that some hedge funds have gotten in on both sides of it. So they're trying to hedge their losses either way. But ultimately, I feel like there's like two different actions going on. One is the specific action of trying to do the short squeeze. And that is, I think, relatively bona fide David and Goliath. I really do kind of think so. And
yeah, it feels like that.
and obviously it's like there are other like Goliaths that are getting in on the side of David and whatever, but that's after the fact. Not the
Yeah, once
initial,
the blood is in the water.
right.
Right?
Everyone
Ah,
sees it and everyone starts being a follower, but there's going to be a lot of Davids who are going to, who have made a lot of money so far. I don't know what's going to happen in the end. No one does. And if anyone does, then they're either lying to you or they're going to make $1 million and they're committing a lot of insider trading laws, violations. But the second aspect of it, which is what you hinted on with Robinhood, is Robinhood's core business model. And that's something we can talk about as well, which that is where it's a very different story. And I think we're going to start seeing a lot of Robinhood's going to really, I think, take a big hit from this one. I don't know if it's going to be enough for them they're going to still be fine, but
I have a question, David, before we get into it. This is sort of like a frequently asked questions thing, because I'm sure people's only other reference to a short is from the movie The Big Short. So my question is, was the Big Short a short squeeze, or was that something else?
It was not really no, it was not. It was a short. A
It
short
was just a regular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A short squeeze is trying to fuck over a short. That would be like if so in The Big Short, they bet against the housing market, right? They bet
Yes.
against Fannie and Freddie. Probably they basically bet against the entire global economy. And patriots that they are, I'm sure everyone calls them heroes, and to this day, we salute them every single day on President's Day for making a lot of money off of the death and destruction of Americans. But
Yeah.
they just did a normal short. If someone had said, I am going to bet a fuck ton of money on the stock market, on Fannie and Freddie, on the housing market doing well, and then fucking over that over the Big Short, then it would have been a short squeeze. So it's like it's like a double a short squeeze is like a double negative almost.
But that's how you make the lemonade, baby. So I gotta, so all, the heroes of The Big Short are the victims in this one, in the sequel.
Yeah.
The
heroes in The Big Short are hedge fund millionaires. These guys
Yeah,
were not good people. It's a really strange movie because like you want to sympathize with them because they're smart and they get it and they're prophetic. And that's what a short ultimately does. It is like someone who is skeptical, is a cynic, and is willing to take the antagonistic perspective and bet against it where everyone else has their money on something. And they're doing it because they're looking through the fundamentals of the security or through the investments, and they're saying, no, I don't see it.
Well, it's what you said right there, David. It's a prophecy. They are basically like they're like magi who are sitting in front of a crystal ball and they're saying, I have figured out some of the fundamentals of this and this will fail. But by basically instituting that thing and being like, all right, this is going to fail, it makes a snowball because other people are like, it's in the water at that point. Kind of like what Gabe was saying. It's like there's blood in the water. So like, once that short happens, then other people are like, well, I think this is going to fail. Then I think this is going to fail. And it just keeps going and going. And that's why the GameStop people are just so fun because they're just sort of like, fuck your prophecy. Fuck that. It's like maybe the fundamentals of owning a brick and mortar video game store are bad.
Yes.
But also, fuck you because maybe it's not.
Yes. Yes to all of those things. I think that I've been reading a lot on this, and there's some people who have been really trying to insist that the fundamentals of the GameStop security are good, that it actually has some bones to it, as you might say, like with those people who really like brownstones, like, oh, it's got good bones, or whatever, like it's a fixer-upper.
Yeah.
Like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
This is not a fixer-upper. This is like, by all intents and purposes, this was an ironically purchased stock. This was literally a like meme nostalgia that people chose to invest in. This is like this. We're in a coronavirus. Retail is dead right now. No one buys hardware video games, and if they do, they get shipped to them. Or like there is not a reasonable chance that the GameStop as a financial, I don't know, as a business model, excuse me, is going to survive, and much less that it's valued at like $400 a security. That's crazy. It was $4 or $3 a security. Like there's anyone who is at this guy. So there's this guy. There's this columnist named Matt Levine for Bloomberg, and he was trying to at one point trying to be like, look, I think that a lot of this is some irony, but some of it is also some people seeing some reasonable justifications for why the GameStop security is good. And I'm like, nah, there's nothing there. I just don't think that there's anything there. This is pure spite. This is a spite investment, and that's it.
So, with that though, I feel like, having read Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week, back in the day, a lot of it is foggy now, but this sort of idea of hacking things, right? Like hedging and hacking and finding the weakness in a system. And so what is, it's like these dudes found the way to nest in a video game and, and stay in the same spot and sort of exploit the weakness of shorts.
Mm-hmm.
And so it seems like it's totally legitimate what they're doing. So I don't understand the pushback from more established financial gurus to be upset with them.
Well, it's scary. Anyone who has a skepticism or fear of populism in any particular way is scared of this. This is like a revolutionary. This is just. I do think this is revolutionary to a degree, to the extent that this has never been done before, and it is completely upending logic of what people thought was possible of a collection of quote unquote retail investors.
Well, it wasn't only that, David, though. It was the fact that they I wasn't, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't like a major sticking point. Was like a part of it was nostalgia, but then the other part was that people through public records and knowledge essentially found out that they had overshorted this beyond 100%.
Yeah, they were ass betting.
Well, so what? Like, I don't even know what that means. Like, what happens when you short something beyond 100%? Do you then get to steal the bricks out of the building and then sell those? Like, what does that even mean?
Yeah, you get to sleep with their mother. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. How do you get value out of something beyond 100%?
I think, I'm not positive, it wasn't 100% of the short, but when the price was still at a reasonable height, right? So when it was at 2%, they had shorted 136% of the security. But when they made the initial short, it was, maybe like $10. And so the fact that it went down, I think I really could be wrong on this one.
Maybe it went down above, or it went down above 100% because a bunch of people piled on at once, but it wasn't necessarily intended to that, and it was more just sort of a barometer for people being like, "Now, fuck this, we're gonna short GameStop." It's not necessarily, it's not a value thing. It's just at one point in time. Yeah,
it's not really like the 100% thing is not really like this is a finite pie,
Okay.
It's valuation, because again, all of this is kind of meaningless. There's no tangible things in all of this stuff. All of this is like an illusion of us kind of trying to of one-upsmanship. This is it's like a digital and financial fisticuffs. There's no there's no there to put it.
No, David, I disagree. There are hundreds of copies of $5 Resident Evil 4 games. That is the fundamentals,
right? How GameStop actually operates as a business, how it works in the real world, its employees, it's these sorts of things, basically irrelevant to what's going on with its valuation right now, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And anyway, I don't know. So it's the shorting beyond the 100% is possible. Maybe if you had, when you made your initial short and you had shorted beyond the 100% in your initial, that would be too risky because it would have to go up in order for you to get to 99% or 98%.
Yeah.
or 97%.
We don't believe in this stock so much. We're just so offended by Deadpool being like, ooh, when he wears the mask
yeah.
and selling that as a poster. Ooh, we're offended. That really just chaps my grits, you know.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that's why I'm not super I don't like generally. I've actually learned a lot about how trading in markets works. I don't usually cover trading in markets stuff. And this has been a bit of a learning curve for me as well.
Yeah, it seems. I mean, I find it liberating that the stock market has become more democratized by these apps and by the fact that more people can get involved. But it also, the more people that are involved, the more you see that it is completely based on optimism and hope and sort of the fantasies of what something is valued. Right. Like,
Right.
or value is not based on something really tangible. And it further shows the disconnect between a company and its relationship to its employees and to the product that it makes
Right.
versus, and that disconnect between these really, I guess, tangible qualities of a company and then the market and the investors.
Right. And absolutely. I mean, I think that divide is a product of the financialization of our economy in general. Just finances, there's too much finance. There's just this is unnecessary. This is unproductive. This is asocial behavior. Think about all the people that you know who are really fucking smart, who, you know, they went to a great law school or they went to, they got really good grades in math. All these people who could have gone on to do other things and they went into finance. Like, I knew a guy, this random Craigslist roommate that I had. He was like, yeah, I was thinking of getting a PhD in physics. And I was like, why? He was like, because Wall Street hires PhDs in physics.
Oh, yeah, that guy. Ugh, that's weird.
I mean, just think about how, like, what sort of not to be like we live in a society, like, what sort of a world do we want to live in where the people who have mastery of the universe, literally mastery of the universe, and use that for sophisticated gambling? That's what they use. That's what they choose to go into instead of solving there's a million problems in the world that need solving, and this is what they choose to go into.
Yeah, well, yeah. I think it brings up I mean,
it's disgusting.
It connects a lot of things. You know, the shit that we've talked in the past, principally of which is shorting, because it's like, I guess in theory, shorting is like a thing where you're like, no, I don't believe in this thing. I don't think it's gonna work because I think the fundamentals of it are fucked up. But like philosophically, it's I mean, there's a reason Facebook didn't put a dislike button for a long time. They're just sort of, even Mark Zuckerberg and his sort of infinite stupidity was just sort of like, nah, we can't. That people are gonna go wild
because people aren't thinking about what will make the world a better place. They're thinking about what's going to return the highest value to their shareholders. The shareholder capitalist model inevitably was going to create this. We just had a casino owner president, okay, who tried to overthrow the government effectively. And now we have, there's just people who, the entire global economy is run like that. And then people are just like, you know what, like, fuck this. I'm going to completely disrupt the entire market logic. Okay. That's also, I think, what's an amazing thing about the GameStop phenomenon is that people just were like, I don't care if GameStop is bad. This is a bad investment, everyone. I'm going to invest in it anyways because fuck Melvin Capital.
Yeah, man. It is the Trump vote. Not like they're not the same, but they rhyme. And this is like the third horseman in the apocalypse of just seeing the entire infrastructure as a fraud, right? Yeah. COVID shined a light on how our healthcare system, privatized healthcare, is a complete fraud. You can't have employer-based healthcare when most of the country is unemployed.
Right.
And then the second, and then also the Capitol being stormed just shows kind of the fraud of the fact that we have that the government is secure in any way, shape, or form. And then
Right.
this is another blow to the illusion that things matter.
Right. And
That there is logic.
Like what's I think has been really interesting has been the regulatory response, because there's been a lot of confusion as to how people should respond. And some people who are considered like progressive or whatever have been having like really weird responses. Like we talked about him last week, but William Galvin is one of the strictest, securities regulators in the country. He's the Secretary of State or the Secretary of the Commonwealth, excuse me, of the state of Massachusetts. Yeah. And he said, we need to consider shutting these stocks down to protect retail investors. And people don't know what to make of this because it is upending all market logic. And because it is exploiting that market logic from the perspective of a securities regulator is very different from the market logic of a participant. And a participant probably recognizes how dumb and illogical and completely untethered from capital formation, as they call it, the stock market is. It is, I want to do something. Fuck you. I have money. Let's do it. And the people on Reddit, who, by the way, want like Roaring Kitty and what's his name, Deep Fucking Value, the same person, some of the two big leaders. This guy's a registered investment advisor. Okay, he's from Massachusetts. His name is Keith Patrick Gill. He used to work at Mass Mutual. He got fired for whatever reason, but he was the one who's been leading this, and he recognizes there's no logic to this. Let's just fucking do this, and he pulled it off, man. Pulled it off, and now people are like, "Is this guy a terrorist? Is this is this guy racist? Is this guy anti-Semitic? Like what?"
Yeah.
So they have to find like an ID Paul way to get upset with someone who is basically helping people that had $600 make tons of money off of speculating on the market to pay off their credit card debts.
Right.
Like if the government's not going to give us all $2,000 like they promised, then why not try to make it in the casino that is Wall Street?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that is like, see, this is the part where you get a little bit into like, not sure exactly what is true, because there have been some very heartening stories, again, coming from Reddit, where they're like, oh, I was able to pay off my medical bills, and I was able to like pay down my mortgage and stuff like that. And it's like, you kind of want to believe it's true, because it sort of makes sense. And a lot of people are substantiating it with like some version of proof where they'll be like, this is my Robinhood account. Like it used to be $1,000 and now it's $40,000. And they're like, yeah, I'm paying back a lot of my parents' debt because they went into debt and stuff like that. And it's just like, fuck yeah, man. I mean, it's like you took all of the best YouTube videos where somebody get massive karma or like driving karma and all just like boo 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 just all at once, it's and like, yeah, there are some it's really important to remember that like there are commercial interests who are involved in this and like partaking in it, but they weren't the ones who started it. And if they did start it, like this Massachusetts guy that you mentioned, they seem to be starting it fairly altruistically, or at least from a like spiteful altruistic, like lawful chaotic. Or no, that's wrong.
He's trying to be a good regulator, right? He just doesn't know he just doesn't know what's going on, and he wants to like. And the thing is, we don't know how this is going to end, and by Thursday, maybe it will have resolved itself more than it has now, and people could lose a fuck ton of money from this. There's no doubt that over the weekend, Citadel and all the people who were shorting are trying to come up with some strategy to get out of this. And they have more sophisticated tools than this collection of retail investors, right? And that they could end up getting really hurt. Like William Galvin was saying, like all these other kind of like, I don't know what's the best way to put them, just kind of like regulatory framework Democrats, like Warren Democrats are kind of like that, are thinking like we need to have really tight rules about how people can behave on Wall Street because outside of those narrow categories is fraud. And to a large degree, that is accurate. But when you think about social movements, which is what this kind of is analogous to, this is much
Yeah.
more analogous to a social movement than anything. The logic doesn't really apply. And all of a sudden, they're trying to cut down on a social movement. And you're like, wait, you can't, because it's outside of that narrow framework. And it's like, no, don't, don't do that. Don't do that. Let them do that. Let them break the rules a little bit because they're
Vote. You gotta vote. You gotta vote.
They're voting with their dollars.
Yeah.
They're not actually. That's also kind of amazing. Is people have been looking for alleged market manipulation by Roaring Kitty, Deep Fucking Value, and any of the other kind of like leaders of this short squeeze, and no one can find so far any violations of law. There have not been any found instances so far of market manipulation, of any sort of fraud, of any sort of pump and dump, because all of that requires what is called, the key word is deceit or deception. There is no deception. Everyone has, from what I can tell, has been completely upfront about how dumb the GameStop investment is.
This is, you know what this is? This is a pump and pump.
Yeah.
This is pumping. You're just pumping. You're pumping. You're just like,
The greatest feeling you can get in a gym, or the most satisfying feeling you can get in a gym, is the pump. Let's say you train your biceps. Blood is rushing into your muscles, and that's what we call the pump. Your muscles get a really tight feeling, like your skin is going to explode any minute. It's really tight. It's like somebody blowing air into your muscle. It just blows up, and it feels different. It feels fantastic. It's as satisfying to me as coming is, as having sex with a woman and coming. So can you believe how much I am in heaven? I'm like getting the feeling of coming in the gym. I'm getting the feeling of coming at home. I'm getting the feeling of coming backstage when I pump up, when I pose out in front of 5,000 people. I get the same feeling. So I'm coming day and night. So I'm coming day and night. So I'm coming day and night.
oh, just gonna get bigger.
Well,
No
it's honestly the Snakes on a Plane promotional campaign.
Okay.
Like, if you guys remember, Snakes on a Plane, everyone was like, this is the people who made it were like, this is the dumbest movie ever.
Yes.
Here is the storyline. It's called Snakes on a Plane, and that's the title. And we've got Sam Jackson saying, we got to get these motherfucking snakes off the plane.
Yeah.
And that's it.
That's
and
so true.
The GameStop Reddit is the same thing. It's just like, yo, this is trash, and we love it.
Yeah.
This is a Rochester trash garbage plate stock. You're going to eat it and you're going to have a good time. And some of you are going to make enough money to pay off your credit card and medical bills. And everyone else, hey man, it is what it is. We're all gambling. We're storming the gates, and most of us aren't going to make it, but a couple of us are.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, I've seen a lot of like people being like, I've lost everything. I lost everything in the financial crisis. My family has never recovered. My family lost everything in NAFTA. We never recovered. We have nothing. I don't care if I lose $2,000 more. Like, big fuck you to everyone at Melvin Capital and everyone.
They don't care. They truly don't care. $2,000, what a lot of these fucking CEOs make in like 10 minutes through their fucking $1 million salary.
Less time than that sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, they're like they're just sort of like, you don't understand. You can't take something. You can't bleed a stone. And like you gave me just enough to mess with, and I don't care if I go back down to zero because there's no such thing as a debtor's prison anymore. So fuck it. I'll just be broke again. I'll just be broke again and work paycheck to paycheck. But like, I don't care. I've done this all my life. Like, try me, dude.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people being like, that exact kind of sentiment. Like, I don't care. I'm. It's something to believe in.
Yeah.
Which is kind of nice. That's nice. People like I don't know. I think people on Wall Street should be incredibly excited that there's this much retail enthusiasm for investment. You know, this is like what I think is maybe one of the more frustrating things, and as we talk about, is how much people on Wall Street condescendingly like to say that we need more investor education. People need to understand financial literacy. Well, it's like, well, people are learning a lot this week, including me. Like people like everyone is understanding what a short is finally, sort of, you know, and they are still upset and like comparing them to the Capital Mob in some way. Like it's I don't know. I'm serious. I interviewed someone, and I'm not going to say who it is, but I interviewed someone last week, and they compared like the Roaring Kitty and these other people to the Capital Mobsters, and like questioned whether they were problematic in some way. And like, these people are never going to get a job on Wall Street again. I was like, they just made $50 million off GameStop. What are you talking about? Like, I don't understand why they're not embracing these people.
Well, yeah, they're doing the thing where they're like, you young people, you need to learn U.S. history, and you're like, okay, I would like to learn about the Tuskegee experiments. Okay, I would like to learn about the genocide of Native America, and they're just sort of like, no, not that part, not that part.
Yes, yes.
I would like to learn about the part where Abraham Lincoln like corresponded with Karl Marx, like
right,
you know, shit like that.
When financial literacy for these people is financial indoctrination to get a job working for them. That's what that means.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean fucking them over.
Yeah, it's it's very rich. It's very good. And obviously people are still excited about it, you know. And I'm all for it. I understand there are going to be big hedge funds that are going to make a lot of money from this because sometimes through no fault of their own and sometimes through direct planning, they will also make a lot of money. But you cannot deny the populism of something so that seems to have so organically, you know, come
Absolutely.
up. Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about Robinhood.
Oh yeah.
The Robinhood angle of this is fascinating, and that is really where there's a lot of really potential. It's just a fascinating company, right? And we've talked about Robinhood before. As a reminder, Robinhood has been sued and or received some sort of fine and or settlements with a regulator 5 or 6 times of like high profile things in the past year and a half. They were sued for best execution by FINRA in late 2019. Best execution is basically if you're a broker, you are required to execute a trade. Okay?
Yes.
And the whole business model of Robinhood is that it is a data provider like Facebook. This is not it is a broker in the sense that it is registered as a broker under the Securities and Exchange Commission, and it provides channels for someone to invest, but it sends off the actual placement and order to intermediaries like Citadel Securities, okay?
Yes.
Who are the ones who actually place the bets. So Robinhood got some FINRA violation for failure to do best execution. A year later, same thing, again, by the SEC, like they settled for like $64 million. They got a lawsuit about it. Then they also have gotten something like last May or last April when there was market volatility. They got hit with a class action lawsuit because they went down for 12 hours or something like that. Right at the peak of the volatility, they were overwhelmed with trading activity, and their servers went down for like 12 hours.
So
people sued them
right when you most need them,
yeah,
right when they would actually be providing a service, you can't find anybody. The line's disconnected, baby.
Yeah. So
Call dropped.
I've already talked to this customer service representative. You send me send me to the manager right now. Do not send me back to customer operations.
Yeah, but the market is still open and prices are fluctuating, and this is the time where you need to be able to react.
Yes,
and they did not.
Yeah.
It feels like a sin of omission, feels like a crime.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, not only that, but like Robinhood has really taken the hit in terms of just sort of like public or PR, the PR hit. Because David, you're mentioning like Citadel and, you know, other tools and firms that do the actual investing, But if somebody says like, UBS is evil. This giant Wall Street hedge fund is evil. You're like, yeah, they're named after like a Greek god. Of course they're evil.
Yeah.
But Robinhood's whole thing is they're like, no, we're not evil. That like they specifically marketed at being like, it's for everybody. We get to do this. So when somebody says, no, you guys are fucking evil, they're like, it hits them twice as hard.
Yeah.
Because that was their whole thing.
That was their whole thing in a way that do no evil was Google's whole thing.
Yes.
I mean, they yeah, absolutely. So they are really going to have a reputational change. I don't think that they're going to really. We'll talk about what the consequences are, but I want to finish the last thing that they got. The last lawsuit that they got against them was by William Galvin, which was this was in December or something like that, and he sued them under Massachusetts jurisdiction for violating its fiduciary duty, which is something we've talked about a lot. Which basically he said the gamification of Robinhood is effectively investment advice, and
Yes.
the investment advice that you're providing is not fiduciary standard advice. And so, I mean, they're like absolutely gamifying it in the way that Uber gamifies being an independent contractor, in the way that Facebook gamifies talking to your high school friends. Robinhood does that, but with your like extra money, and does that as a brokerage firm, which is highly suspect. And all of that is the background on what Robinhood has been up to. Robinhood was last week the most downloaded free app in the Apple Store.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
I didn't hear that statistic.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense. Yeah.
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 It
Well,
is.
All press is good press.
I mean, we'll see.
Maybe.
I think you're probably right, Gabe, because unless Robinhood is enjoined from brokerage, like they lose their brokerage license, or unless they're like forbidden from doing certain activity for a certain period of time, they're going to just make a fuck ton of money off this, because this is, not to use in the parlance of our times, this is very disruptive, and this is also very democratizing, and they're going to make a lot of money off of this.
And
any
people
fund
love
that they get
yeah.
will be made up for instantly. They could be fined billions of dollars, and they'll get it in capital calls from their hedge fund people. They'll make up for it. Any sort of litigation costs, they'll be able to pay for it. I think you're ultimately right, Gabe.
You know, we love the idea of disruption. We also love the idea of things being free, like a free app. Like I personally, I think be skeptical of anything that's free. You know,
Yeah.
and it is a cliche at this point, right? That you're the product if you're using the app that's free.
Yeah, if you're not paying
You know?
for it, you are the product, right?
Yeah.
So what happens, as we all remember, the stonks were rocket shipping, and last week, and Robinhood was concerned. Well, their clearinghouse. Okay, so trades are executed in a 2-day increment. Someone files the order at a certain price. I want to buy at this price or sell at this price, but it takes 2 days to actually execute it. Even absent Robinhood's intermediaries, right? There's still a lag, okay? In which case, you need to have capital reserves. You need to have money in order to make up for that difference, because there's a risk right there. In that little middle period, there's a risk that someone's going to back out, that there's going to be a huge fluctuation in those 2 days. Something's going to tank. Something's going to get fucked over. So brokerage houses need to have clearing houses. And the clearinghouse is basically an insurance policy, but it's like an insurance policy against that 2-day risk. And if that makes sense. And it's just a big pool of money to be a little intermediary to offset that little risk.
Yeah,
like a
would you say-
slush
would-
fund.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Trust
Well, would you
fund.
say? Would you say clearinghouse, David? I literally just think money house. Like you could. It's just a house full of money.
Yes.
Like just in case.
Yes, it's a trust fund. It's a rainy day fund. It's a little like insurance policy that you have in the event that some shit goes crazy. So one of Robinhood's biggest executors of its trades is Citadel Securities. Okay, Citadel Securities is owned by the same parent company, Citadel, that owns Citadel LLC, which is the hedge fund that was shorting GameStop. Well,
Yes.
it bought the company that was it effectively was.
Yeah, it was like this weird tree where it goes bam, bam, bam. There's the relation.
Yes.
You know? Like, yeah.
Yeah. It was, and Citadel bought Melvin Capital's position basically last Monday, and Citadel became the biggest short, or one of the biggest shorts on GameStop. But it also is owned by Citadel, which owns Citadel Securities, which is the biggest clearinghouse for. Well, no, it's the executor of trades. It's separate from the clearinghouses. We want to make sure that there's a distinction there. It's the one that's executing the trades. But anyways, so Robinhood gets a call from its clearinghouse, not from Citadel Securities. They get a call from the clearinghouse, allegedly. This is reported in the Wall Street Journal, that says, you need to do something about GameStop because we're worried about our risk. We don't. Our insurance pool money, our little trust fund or whatever, is drying up. The clearinghouse needs capital in order to offset this risk of the rocket ships, GameStop stocks going up. And they, so what Robinhood did was it cut off the ability for anyone to be able to buy further GameStop or AMC or BlackBerry or Nokia stocks. But they could short, and they could sell. Not they could short, they could sell, which is a really weird thing to do.
Huh. It sounds like it goes against the free market. Like, there's no invisible hand anymore.
Yeah.
Now there's
There's a very, very visible hand.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is a direct market intervention. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and they have all sorts of justifications for it. Their clearinghouse said, hey, we needed the money. And so they were just following orders. But most of the time when there's a halt on trading, that is either done by the Securities and Exchange Commission because there's some sort of, they're seeing fraud, or they're seeing something like that, some sort of manipulation or some sort of like bad illegality, right? Or the stock exchanges, which are regulated by the SEC. So those are the ones who usually do it. You usually don't have the brokerage firm manipulate the market like that, saying we're only going to allow buys but not sells. Very strange activity for a brokerage firm, a private entity. It doesn't even have it's not even publicly traded. A private firm to do that. And the fact that they have this perception of conflict of interest, all parties have denied that Citadel had any involvement in the decision to stop trading of buys on Thursday, for the record. But the fact that perception is there looks nasty. It looks very, very nasty. They don't allow. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, like we can't prove that George Bush was part of the JFK assassination, but the fact that he called right afterwards because he was in Texas and was like, I wasn't involved, just checking in, guys.
By the way, I wasn't. No. I was in Dallas, but shut up. Yeah, it's a real bad look. And now this is where we are right now, because as we're recording this, it is the weekend. We are on a timeout right now,
right?
And because they don't fuck around on the weekends, and it really is a question of like, how big is this slap on the wrist going to be if there is going to be one? Like,
right. So
what's going to happen? So
on Friday, the SEC put out a statement saying, We're watching over this whole thing. We're paying attention. We don't know what the fuck's going on, but they put out a couple ominous sentences for all of the parties involved. The commission will closely review actions taken by regulated entities, Robinhood, in parentheses. They don't say it, but they mean it, that may disadvantage investors or otherwise unduly inhibit their ability to trade certain securities. Okay. So that is clearly targeting people like Robinhood, because everyone else, what they did to deal with this potential for running out of capital, because there was too much money going into GameStop. What they did, this is what Schwab did. This is, I think, what JP Morgan did. This is what Webull did, and a few others. Or no, maybe not Webull. Webull did something different. But like what they just said, we are going to stop putting our own money into this. So what's called a margin call, which is where the broker lends money to the investor in order to, and they take a cut of however the investment does on top of the commission fee if they charge commission fees. So a margin call is like, okay, well, I want to put $30,000. I want 30,000 stocks in GameStop, but I can only afford 15. The broker says, okay, we'll do a margin call. I'll take the other 15 for you. The brokerage houses, everyone else just said, we're not going to do margins on these stocks because we can't afford it. GameStop did something very, very different. And that's why I think that GameStop is going to get the most regulatory scrutiny, and because of the perceived conflict of interest. Second thing, the SEC is looking to protect retail investors when the facts demonstrate abusive or manipulative trading activity that is prohibited by federal securities laws. Okay, what does that mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, we're watching
that just means like, I mean, it's bullshitty sounding because it goes against it, like all the rules to begin with. But you're just sort of like, what are you talking about? Manipulative stuff. It's like the whole thing. It's gambling. It's all manipulative.
Right.
So it's like,
yeah.
it just means they're gonna punish retail people. You know.
Yeah, right. That one is targeted towards retail people, and they're looking out for it. I personally don't think that anyone on the retail side, any of the Wall Street bets people are going to see any SEC actions, in part because I don't think they did anything wrong so far that's been proven, but also it would be such a bad image, such a bad look, you know?
Oh, dude, if they do that, they'll just like sue them afterwards, right? Especially if it's like those big dogs, like that guy from Massachusetts and stuff, because it's like if they try to be like, yeah, you get a fine for like whatever, $5 million or whatever, they're just gonna be like, I'm gonna fucking sue your ass because I'm not one of the plebes who's buying these things. I'm an actual like white collar person, you know?
Yeah.
Well,
they'll challenge it. They would challenge it.
I don't think you want to. It's a bad look to go after the retail guys because the whole point of the lie is, or rather, the system keeps working because we tell people that you too can make it.
Right.
So if you,
Exactly.
if we realize that there's no point in joining the market because we're never gonna win, then what's the point?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
that's where the rigmarole goofy rule people like Elizabeth Warren really show their asses, because their whole thing is we need to rein in Wall Street. But when they say we need to rein in Wall Street, that means they're applying the same amount of pressure to goofy goons who are investing in Nokia stock, and that pressure also applies to them. When culturally and socially speaking, people are like, no, those people didn't do anything wrong. But then again, like those Elizabeth Warren types are like, no, but those are the rules. If you participated in it, it's like, no. like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, those are the people that you always talked about reining in. And when you like retroactively apply these rules to people who are just kind of messing around, it is a really bad look.
Yeah, exactly. And the SEC has kind of a sometimes conflicting mission. It's really two things. One is to protect retail investors, and the other one is to ensure capital formation, which is to theoretically like have efficient, capital markets, and to make sure that companies are being formed with good investments and ensure that the big boys are doing their job right too. And in this case, there's an argument to be made that this is like almost like the retail investors are forming capital, and it is unclear whether they need protection right now. Who might need protection right now are the hedge funds. And everyone's like, if you are going to crack down on retail investors to protect hedge funds, that is going to be such a bad look. I just don't.
Yeah.
There's no regulator who is going to want to do that, especially one that is ostensibly, progressive and run by a Democratic SEC. You know, Gary Gensler is actually a pretty progressive securities regulator, and I would be surprised if they did some action, you know, against like, you know, dipshit thong stonk 69 on Reddit.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't. I would be very surprised if they actually went after these people, even if there was some evidence of it. Frankly,
Well, yeah, and then it gets into this weird, like you kind of were saying, like who are we protecting at this point?
Right.
Like it seems like you're trying to protect like the most narrow, weird band of people, where it's like, okay, well, you're not. It's like now it seems like you're not protecting small dudes, you know, retail people. So that's fucked. And then you say you're going to persecute gigantic hedge funds that make billions and billions of dollars, but you don't do that. So
Right.
that's fucked.
Right.
So it's like, so you're protecting like what? Like guys who live in like Weehawken, New Jersey, who make $250,000 a year? Like what? Like who are you protect? It's like it's like why?
I mean, I think ultimately it's just showing that most SEC regulation and enforcement is a slap on the wrist, even if they're like, and how they respond to Robinhood in particular, I think is going to be really important. And because Robinhood will be able to make up for it, but Robinhood has had so many issues in the past year and a half. And they've had almost as bad of a year as Facebook, frankly, in terms of PR. And yet they also have made so much money, and they haven't even gone public yet. Okay? If they don't impose a really serious fine for what they did on Thursday, because I think that there is some real evidence that you cannot, as a broker, turn off the buy but not the sell. You just like there's something really manipulative about that. And whatever your reason was from your clearinghouse, whatever your alibi is, there's something about that is potentially a core violation, an abdication of what a broker's duty is to their alleged customer. Remember, anyone who uses Robinhood, not a customer. Their customers are the hedge fund intermediaries, right? Who buy the data. That's why I say alleged customer.
That's why you should go through a pay app, not the free app, if you want the freedom if you want to have full autonomy as a retail customer.
There's going to be hearings for this. Watch a representative. Just mark my fucking words. Watch a representative from Robinhood be in front of a Senate, you know, finance committee and be like, "We're a technology company."
Yeah.
They're gonna do some Uber shit, right? Like real fast. Like, no. We're not a car sharing company. We're a technology company.
Okay, you know who the general counsel is for Robinhood?
Who?
Dan Gallagher, a former Republican SEC commissioner.
What the fuck? Why?
Yeah.
Such a bad look.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, he's going to make, their Robinhood lawyers are going to be very, very busy for the next few days. I mean, there's also okay, so remember last year we talked about how William Galvin did a lawsuit against Robinhood for alleged violations of their fiduciary duty. There could be an argument to be made, and this is getting a little out there, right?
Esoteric.
That if you forbid customers from buying, but allow them to sell because there is a perceived risk of further buying, okay? There's a question, is that investment advice? And if it is, that's another rule violation, because I don't know if it could ever be enforced against. But like, if I say to someone, look, I can't let you buy right now, it's too risky. Am I telling you they can go? I'm not precluding you from outright buying on any of the other brokerages. They can go to Schwab, they can go to Webull, they can go anywhere else and buy as much as they want. But I am specifically saying, don't buy right now. That
sounds like advice?
That could kind of be, that could kind of be perceived as investment advice. And especially if they say, I'll let you sell. Yeah, you can sell. That's fine. There's a creative regulator could see that and say that's investment advice. And therefore, you have a duty that is higher than what you would have otherwise when you are providing investment advice. And that's a violation of the regulation best interest stuff. And that's a little bit further out there. We don't know if anything like that's ever going to happen. But
Look, we really haven't addressed the real victim in all of this, and that is GameStop's feelings. You know, you know what I mean? You hear those like mean-spirited stories of like frat dudes that invite, like someone who's not attractive to a dance, and that unattractive person is like, oh, they love me. People really like me. Like they get all dolled up and they go to the ball and then they realize, oh no, this was a huge practical joke.
Oh no.
Totally. Yeah, I mean they're like Carrie right now with the pig's blood.
Yeah. It's like, is the pig's blood going to be dropped on the GameStop CEO?
Yeah, I mean the SEC said that they were looking at GameStop as well. I mean, because if you are what's called an issuer, if you are one of these companies that's being invested in, you need to be very careful right now, because if you start buying or I think selling, if you start selling some of this stock and start profiting off of this stuff, off of this insane activity, you could really get yourself in trouble for some fraud issues.
Be in some deep doo-doo.
Yeah, you could I mean, because that just like ties you into this thing. So GameStop's got to be real careful about how they play this one. It's kind of like you show up to the party and you're like, what's her name in Mean Girls? You know, you show up and you're like the only one who's actually dressed up in a scary costume, and everyone's trying to prank you,
Yeah.
and all the other girls are dressed up like sluts, and you just got to play it cool. Pretend like you knew what was going on. Just play it cool. Don't overreact. Don't make too much of a comment about it. Just don't say too much. Don't sell your stocks. Don't try and profit off of this. Don't make any public comment. All of these companies have, from what I understand, have been silent this past week.
You're just like that lady who dressed up as the Babadook in that meme 4 years ago. Remember that?
I remember the Babadook.
Yeah, there was a lady. She's like, my friends told me it was a Halloween party, and I thought it was a costume party, so I dressed up as the Babadook, but nobody else was wearing a costume.
Yeah.
And she's just extreme, like very much dressed as the Babadook, face paint and every. She's standing in the corner like, yeah,
absolutely. So anyways, wild shit, man. I don't know. I wanted to say one more thing about whether we think that this is like a social movement or not. Like, this feels to me, I wanted to just say one weird thing about it, another weird theory about it, which is like,
how weird. David's being weird today.
So if Robinhood users are not customers, what are they? Right? Like, what really, you are the product, right? And does that mean that like you are producing the value for this business model, right? Like, are you, if this is a company that is gold mining for gold, are Robinhood users the buyers of the gold? Are they the miners of the gold, or are they the gold itself? Does that make sense?
Kind of.
Yeah, but like everything's fluid, so can't you be all those things?
Well, yeah, I mean, the real thing, I get what you're saying, David, and again, I really think that a lot of this is going to come out, whether or not how public it is, you know, or how overt it is this may come out in some sort of congressional hearing, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, it just really depends on who asks the question, you know? If you get a Katie Porter type asking the question, she's just going to be like, "Who are your customers' products or not? Yes or no?" Like, then that will be, it should be very forceful about it. But then if you get a Chuck Grassley type, he's going to be like, "Now tell me, do you work with or without the sheriff of Nottingham?" I'll take my question off the air. You
his,
know,
his tweets recently have been actually like very sad. It feels like elder abuse. But yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just a weird idea of like, if this is a social movement sort of activity, what are they most analogous to? Is this like the gold miners going on strike? Is this like the gold saying we're gonna mine ourselves and make our own necklaces?
wealth.
Yeah, what is this structurally most similar to? Because it's not really like a boycott either. Like, it's just I'm trying to like I've been trying to place it onto what it most likely could be. And I think one place where it could be is users of Robinhood are like independent contractors. They don't work for Robinhood, okay? But they are providing the value. They are the core value producing aspects of its business model. Of basically, they execute these trades, and effectively their payments, in quotes, is their ability to operate on the platform and whatever returns they get from their investments. So
Maybe it's just like I think I know what you're saying. You're just reaching. It seems like you're kind of reaching for a metaphor to like what this is like, and
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe it's kind of like the good version of like a small business person, because like, you know, I certainly have grown to despise them when it comes to interacting with them. They seem like they're just sort of like small players in an otherwise evil game. But if you are participating in the system, and you stop for a second and you are like a small business and you're like, wait, this is fucked up. I'm not going to try to exploit my workers. I'm not going to try to do this. I'm going to say fuck you, and I'm going to just, you know, sell my wares and do that. And like Robinhood is like the credit card payment operator, you know, where they're just sort of like, but you want to take credit cards, right? And you're just like, no, fuck you. I'll just take cash only. You're out of this. You know, like I'm screwing you over. That kind of seems like it's sort of half that, you know?
yeah, it's
Because
like a
again,
revolt of the petty bouge.
a little bit like the petty bouge, not teeny bouge, the teeny bouge.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I see that. I mean, these people are owners of capital, literally, not workers by any stretch of the imagination. And it doesn't cost labor to make an investment, right? That's
Yeah.
um
They're disgruntled. They're definitely disgruntled. Gabe, do you have one? I don't know. It's kind of hard to. There's so many weird metaphors that it could potentially be.
I mean,
like,
I thought this was kind of like an Arab Spring type thing in the way
Sure.
that the Arab Spring was a lie. That it seemed that, you know, the tech utopians were like, yes, look at the democratization of information, and look at this revolt, and as somehow Twitter was the thing that led to people being liberated to overthrow tyranny, but the tyranny came back twice as hard in almost every instance. And right now we're just seeing that the free flow of information among really the petty bourgeois capital owners has allowed for them to, in concert with one another, you know, invest, but they're still. It's not going to turn out well. We've just added one new facet to how finance can operate. You know,
Yeah, it's like, it's not like you got the Subway sandwich shop owner guys revolting. It's like you got like the assistant manager revolting. You know, it's close.
it's still just the market. It's still the market, and at the end of the day, you know, wouldn't it be great if we weren't so overly financialized? If capital was tied to like meaningfully making the world better,
yeah,
for more people.
absolutely.
This feels like
Yeah.
further cannibalization of and speculation rather than meaningfully using capital productively.
Yeah.
Yeah. Use those big brains of yours to make a bridge. Use them use them to make a nice like perfectly spherical gear. How about that? You know, make a nice train. Make a nice train.
There
Why
you
don't
go. Yeah, there you go. Good train.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that the Arab Spring analogies are pretty interesting because of the tech optimism that's involved in this, and ultimately how this could really have a huge backlash. Like, we are in what's fun about recording this now is that we have no idea what's going to happen on Monday. And it could totally bust by the time this episode comes out. And in which case, I think we should add on a little addendum, if that's okay.
Yeah, for sure.
And but right now we're kind of in this a little bit of an optimistic place for the Wall Street Bets people. For those people who have put their money on this short squeeze, on this meme stocking phenomenon, there's a little bit of optimism. And how the powerful actors respond in the next few days and weeks and months will be crucial for how this activity, for how this new way of conducting yourself in capitalism operates in the future. Are the hedge funds going to find a way to completely nip this in the butt? Are the regulators going to crack down on it and show themselves to be spineless hypocrites? Or they're going to allow it to happen, and this hedge fund is going to totally go bankrupt, and meme stocking is going to become the new cancel culture or whatever. Oh my God, I can't believe I just said that. But I mean, like what is going to, how things move in the same way that the few months and years after Tahrir Square in Egypt were so pivotal in how they got to an even more repressive military dictatorship in Egypt a year and a half later. It's a lot of moving parts right now, and a lot could change depending on how powerful people respond.
Yeah, well, if you want to be Arab Spring about it, yes, there was an Egypt, there was a Morocco, there was a Libya, there was an Algeria, but there was also a Tunisia.
Yes, there was.
And there was a Tunisia. And Tunisia, if I'm not mistaken, David, aren't they doing okay?
They're doing okay.
They're doing all right. So let's, hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah. Let's balance that out with the open air slave markets in Libya.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Now, Libya, not doing too hot.
Libya.
Morocco.
Libya. Libya. Who was that politician who just didn't know what Libya was?
I don't remember.
Well, there was your boy, the libertarian, that didn't know where Aleppo was, but to be honest, I didn't know at the time either, so it wasn't a big gotcha.
Yeah.
Hey, man.
My boy Gary.
Hey, man, I'm always just fascinated whenever I look at a map of the world in, 1953, and I'm like, Western Sahara, where's that? Yeah.
Still exists?
I don't know. I mean, it could.
Not according to Morocco and Israel, it doesn't exist, but according to everyone else, it exists. That's another episode. All right. Okay.
Yeah. I think we covered this about as extensively as we can, but if we have an addendum, I'll add it in at the end in a couple days.
Yeah.
So,
We'll figure that out. Okay. Well, this has been fun. This is the episode that we have been building up for, guys. This podcast was built for this moment. Ponzi Scream, everyone. Like, listen, and subscribe. Ponzi Scream. All right.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Yes.
It feels good. It feels good that big finance is finally in the headlines, and all of these things that we've been yammering into the void about for the last year are coming to fruition.
Yes. Ponzi Scream.
Ooh, reap the grapes. Ooh, yes.
Juicy.
Alrighty, here is Danny again in the editing bay. It is currently 3/23, February 3rd. This is a couple days after the original episode, and as far as a postscript goes on what has happened to GameStop in the interim, it looks like the stock has since gone down about 75%, but it is nowhere near where it was a month ago. So it still is quite high overall. I believe there's also been some legal battles that are now being waged against Robinhood for, selling their investors' stocks without their permission or some version of that. But yeah, hasn't been as big of a precipitous drop or rally for that matter since Sunday. And you guys should just, keep an eye on what's happening in the damn market because it should still be interesting.
Bye bye.
All right. Bye.
Bye.